Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. The call came in at 11:42 p.m. I remember checking my watch because it was unusually quiet for a Friday night in Tampa. The dispatch crackled through with a code 3, immediate response required. A male victim, mid-30s, found unresponsive after an apparent assault outside Murphy's Bar on Henderson Avenue. Unit 47 responding, I radioed back, glancing at my partner Ben, who was already firing up the engine. The red and white lights painted ghostly patterns across the empty streets as we sped through the mild Florida night. We arrived to find a small crowd gathered around a man sprawled on the sidewalk. The onlookers parted as Ben and I approached with our gear. The victim lay face down, completely still. His breathing was shallow but steady, a good sign. "Sir, can you hear me?" I asked, kneeling beside him. "I'm Jason Thorne with Tampa Emergency Services. We're here to help." When we rolled him over, I noticed something odd. His skin felt unusually hot to the touch, almost burning despite the cool evening air. Dark veins spread across his neck like a spider's web, pulsing beneath pale skin. His eyes were open but vacant, staring past me into nothing. A woman in a bartender's apron stepped forward. He was fine 20 minutes ago, just having drinks with friends. Then some guy attacked him out of nowhere, bit him right on the shoulder. The attacker ran off before anyone could stop him. I cut away the victim's shirt to assess the wound. The bite mark was deep, the flesh torn and inflamed around the edges. But it was the discoloration spreading outward from the wound that caught my attention. I'd never seen anything like it. The veins around the bite were turning an alarming shade of black. "Pulse is racing," Ben reported, frowning at the monitor. "Temperature 104.2 and climbing." Something wasn't right. I'd seen my share of trauma cases, but this was different. The way the man's muscles spasmed beneath his skin, how his breathing came in ragged gasps. Every instinct told me we were dealing with something dangerous. We loaded him into the ambulance, and I radioed ahead to Tampa General. "Be advised. Incoming trauma patient, male, 30s, severe bite wound with unknown complications, exhibiting unusual symptoms." The drive to the hospital took 7 minutes. 7 minutes that would haunt me forever. Because that's when everything started to change. The victim's convulsions grew more violent. His skin burned hotter. The black veins spread visibly up his neck, across his face. Then he started making these sounds, not moans exactly, but something deeper, more guttural, like an animal trapped in a human throat. "BP dropping," Ben called from the driver's seat. "Pulse irregular." I reached for a sedative, but before I could administer it, the man's eyes snapped open. They were different now, glazed over with a gray film, yet somehow alert, predatory. His jaw worked soundlessly, teeth clicking together. We were 2 minutes from Tampa General when he lunged at me. His teeth missed my arm by inches. The strength in his emaciated frame defied logic as he thrashed against the restraints, movements erratic and savage. I struggled to hold him down as he snarled, straining toward me with snapping jaws. "Almost there," Ben shouted, but I barely heard him over the patient's inhuman screams. The ambulance screeched to a stop at the emergency entrance. The back doors flew open, and 2 nurses reached in to help. I tried to warn them, to tell them something was terribly wrong, but it all happened in a blur. The patient broke free and launched himself at the nearest nurse, latching onto her forearm with his teeth. Her scream pierced the night air as they tumbled to the ground. The second nurse tried to help, but the patient, no, not a patient anymore, was already moving, his body twisting and contorting in ways that defied human anatomy. Security rushed forward. Someone shouted for restraints. I stood frozen in the ambulance doorway, watching as more staff poured out of the building. None of them understood what they were dealing with. How could they? I didn't even understand it myself. "Thorne, we've got another call." Ben's voice jolted me back. "Possible mass casualty incident at Murphy's Bar." Murphy's Bar, where our patient had been attacked. where it had all started. As we pulled away from the chaos erupting at Tampa General, dread settled in my stomach like lead. We just delivered something terrible to that hospital, something that would spread. The radio was alive with chatter now, multiple units responding to similar calls across the city. Reports of violent attacks, unexplained injuries, people exhibiting extreme aggressive behavior. I checked my watch again, 12:03 a.m. The night was just beginning. The streets felt different now. In the 20 minutes since our first call, the scattered groups of people near Murphy's bar had been replaced by chaos. People ran past our ambulance, some bleeding, others helping injured friends. Car alarms pierced the night air, their discordant symphony mixing with distant screams. "Dispatch Unit 47 approaching Murphy's bar," Ben radioed as we turned onto Henderson. "What's the situation?" Static crackled before the response came. "Multiple reports of violent assaults. Police en route. Be advised," the transmission cut out abruptly. We rounded the corner and I saw why. Murphy's bar had descended into chaos. The front windows were shattered, glass glittering on the sidewalk under the streetlights. People streamed out of the entrance, shoving past each other in panic. And behind them, "Ben, stop the rig!" I grabbed the dashboard as three figures emerged from the bar's entrance. Their movements were stiff and halting, their faces twisted into vacant expressions as they tracked the fleeing crowd. Dark liquid dripped from their mouths. A young woman stumbled on the sidewalk, falling hard. Before she could rise, one of the figures pounced. Her shriek cut through the chaos as teeth sank into her neck, ripping through flesh and arteries. "We have to help her." I reached for the door handle, but Ben's hand clamped down on my arm. "Look." His voice was tight with fear. More figures were emerging from the surrounding buildings. Their skin bore the same dark veins we'd seen on our first patient. Some had visible bite wounds. Others were covered in blood, fresh and dried. They pursued anything that moved with a single-minded focus. "This is Unit 47. Ben's voice shook as he grabbed the radio. "We need immediate backup at Murphy's. Multiple casualties, situation deteriorating rapidly. These people, they're—" A body slammed against the driver's side window. Empty eyes stared in at us, teeth gnashing against the glass. Ben swore, throwing the ambulance into reverse just as more of them noticed us. "All units be advised," dispatch cut in, the operator's professional tone cracking. "We are receiving similar reports citywide. Multiple stations have gone dark. Emergency services are suspended. All units return to your stations immediately." I watched another person fall to the infected crowd, my training warring with instinct. "We can't just leave them. We have to." Ben's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "You saw what happened at the hospital. We can't help if we're dead." A scream nearby drew my attention. A man was pressing himself against a shop window, pounding on the glass as three infected closed in. I recognized him, the bartender from Murphy's who'd been serving drinks just an hour ago. "Stop, please." He turned to our ambulance, eyes wide with terror. "Help me." The infected reached him before we could move. I watched, paralyzed, as they dragged him down, his screams mixed with the sounds of tearing flesh. "Jason!" Ben's voice snapped me back. "Where do we go?" The radio offered no guidance now, just a jumble of panicked voices talking over each other. I caught fragments. "Whole families infected. Hospital overrun. Police station under siege. Fire station 12, I decided. It's fortified, has supplies. We can regroup there." Ben pressed his lips into a tight line, maneuvering around abandoned cars and fleeing civilians. Every few blocks we passed more scenes of horror, people being chased down. Others already turned and hunting in packs. Some of the infected noticed our ambulance and gave chase, but they couldn't match our speed. We were 3 blocks from the station when a pickup truck ran a red light, T-boning a minivan directly in our path. The van spun out, flipping onto its side. Steam hissed from its crushed engine. "We have to check for survivors," I said, already reaching for my med kit. "Jason." Ben's warning came too late. The van's windshield had shattered on impact. As we watched, a figure crawled out, a woman in a blood-soaked sundress. Her body moved with impossible fluidity despite her clearly broken bones. When she turned toward us, her eyes reflected our emergency lights with an animalistic gleam. More movement came from the pickup truck. Its driver emerged, also transformed, injuries seemingly meaningless. They both focused on our vehicle with predatory intensity. "Go around," I urged. "Use the sidewalk." Ben accelerated, mounting the curb. The infected launched themselves at us, one managing to grab the side mirror. I heard it snap off as we sped past the wreck. The radio had gone completely silent now. In its place, my mind replayed everything I'd seen in the last hour. The first patient's transformation, the hospital, Murphy's bar, the spreading chaos. None of it made sense, but one thing was clear. This infection moved faster than anything I'd ever seen. Fire Station 12 appeared ahead, its massive bay doors sealed shut. The building's windows glowed with light, a beacon in the darkening city. Several firefighters stood guard at the entrance, weapons raised. They recognized our ambulance and quickly waved us in. The bay door opened just enough for us to slip through, then slammed shut behind us. Inside, dozens of people huddled in small groups, other first responders, civilians they'd managed to save. Everyone wore the same shell-shocked expression. Captain Reynolds approached us, his face grave. "Welcome to the last safe place in Tampa, at least for now." Inside the fire station, time seemed to slow down. The constant adrenaline rush of the past hour gave way to an uneasy quiet, broken only by hushed conversations and the occasional crackle of dead radio channels. Captain Reynolds had converted the station's common area into a makeshift command center, though there wasn't much to command anymore. I sat on a metal folding chair, staring at my phone's blank screen. No signal. My sister Autumn lived just outside Tampa with her 2 kids. Tonight was her shift at Tampa General, the same hospital where we'd left that first infected patient. The same hospital now overrun with the infected. "She's smart," Ben said, reading my expression. "Autumn knows how to handle herself." I'd introduced them at last year's emergency services picnic. Autumn had brought her famous potato salad, and her kids had been fascinated by our ambulance, asking endless questions about all the equipment. Phoenix was 7, Aria just turned 5. They called me Uncle Jason and begged me to tell them stories about helping people. Now I couldn't even call to warn them. The station's TV flickered with emergency broadcasts, grainy footage of similar scenes playing out across Florida. Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, everywhere reported the same pattern. Bite victims turning within minutes, attacking others, spreading the infection at an exponential rate. The news anchor's voice trembled as she urged people to stay inside and await military assistance. A commotion near the station's side entrance drew my attention. 2 firefighters were arguing with a frantic woman who'd somehow made it inside during a supply run. "My husband's out there," she pleaded. "He's only 3 blocks away. Please, we have to help him." Captain Reynolds stepped in, his voice firm but gentle. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't risk opening those doors again. The infected are drawn to noise and movement. Every time we open up, we put everyone here in danger." I watched the woman crumple to the floor, sobbing. How many others were out there, separated from loved ones? How many were still alive? My thoughts turned to Autumn's house. I could picture it clearly, the blue shutters she'd painted herself, the tire swing in the front yard, the garden she'd started with the kids. It was only 15 minutes away by car, under normal circumstances. "Don't even think about it," Ben warned, noticing my restlessness. "You heard the captain. Those doors stay shut." He was right, of course, but that didn't make it any easier. I pulled out my wallet, fingers brushing against the photo tucked inside. It was from Aria's last birthday party. Autumn had managed to capture the exact moment Phoenix shoved his sister's face into the cake. Aria was laughing despite the frosting covering her nose. Autumn stood behind them, hands on hips, trying to look stern but failing completely. The sound of breaking glass outside made everyone freeze. Through the station's high windows, we could see shadows moving in the street, more infected drawn by the lights and voices inside. Their shapes distorted in the darkness as they prowled the perimeter. "First floor, lights out," Captain Reynolds ordered. Everyone stay quiet." The ground floor plunged into darkness. In the dim emergency lighting, I could make out about 30 survivors scattered throughout the station. EMTs, firefighters, police officers, and civilians they'd managed to save. All of us trapped, listening to the infected outside. A soft whimper caught my attention. In the corner, a young boy clutched his mother's hand. He couldn't have been much older than Phoenix. The sight hit me like a physical blow. "They're out there somewhere," I whispered to Ben. "My sister, the kids, they're waiting for help that isn't coming." Ben leaned forward, his voice low. "Listen to me, Jason. Autumn's not just your sister, she's a trauma nurse. She's dealt with crisis situations before. Right now, she's probably got those kids somewhere safe, doing exactly what we're doing, waiting for things to calm down." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But I couldn't shake the image of Autumn at the hospital, facing what we'd seen. Or worse already. No, I couldn't let myself think about that. A police officer who'd made it to the station was briefing Captain Reynolds on what he'd seen. The infection had reached the suburbs. Houses were burning. People were barricading themselves inside whatever buildings they could find. Those who tried to flee found the roads blocked by abandoned cars and wandering infected. "National Guard's been mobilized," the officer reported, "but they're focusing on creating safe zones in the major cities. It'll be hours before they reach the outlying areas." Hours. Autumn's neighborhood would be on its own until morning, at least. I checked my watch. 1:27 a.m. The night felt endless. The station's radio equipment crackled occasionally, picking up fragments of transmissions from other emergency services. Each message painted a darker picture. The infection was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. Standard emergency protocols had completely broken down. "We're getting reports of infected showing up at private residences," one transmission warned. "They're targeting homes with lights on or any signs of life. If you can hear this, kill your lights, stay quiet, and wait for—" Static swallowed the rest of the message. I thought of Autumn's house, lit up like a beacon. She always kept the porch light on when she worked nights, so the kids wouldn't come home to a dark house. Tonight, that light could be drawing the infected right to their door. Captain Reynolds gathered the first responders for a briefing. The station had enough supplies to last a few days if we rationed carefully. The building was secure, with heavy doors and barred windows. We could hold out until help arrived, but as I listened to the plan, my decision was already forming. I couldn't sit here in safety while Autumn and the kids might be in danger. I had to try. I just needed to figure out how to get past those doors. The distant rumble of engines caught everyone's attention. Captain Reynolds rushed to the windows, peering through night vision binoculars. 4 military Humvees moved in formation down the street, pushing abandoned vehicles aside with reinforced bumpers. "National Guard's here earlier than expected," Reynolds announced. A wave of relief swept through the station, but I saw something else, an opportunity. "Captain," I stepped forward, "those vehicles are heading east. That's where my sister lives. She's working at Tampa General tonight, but her kids—" I let the implications hang in the air. Reynolds studied me for a long moment. "You realize the danger out there, the odds aren't good." "I understand." My voice was steady despite my racing heart. "But those are my family." Ben grabbed my arm. "Jason, don't do this. We've seen what's out there." The captain raised his hand for silence as the convoy drew closer. After what felt like an eternity, he keyed his radio. The response crackled back. They were heading to MacDill Air Force Base and could drop me near my destination. They couldn't stop for survivors, but would radio for evacuation support once they reached the base. 5 minutes to grab what you need," Reynolds said. "And Jason? Make them count." I rushed to gather supplies, medical kit, flashlight, extra batteries. Ben approached with something wrapped in cloth. "Station's armory," he explained, revealing a police-issue Glock 19. Captain approved it. 3 magazines. Don't waste them. The weight of the weapon felt foreign in my hands. I'd never fired anything outside a shooting range, but tonight that might change. The station's bay door opened just enough for me to slip through. The convoy commander, Lieutenant Matthews, ordered me into the lead Humvee. As we pulled away, I caught a last glimpse of Ben watching from the doorway. "Your sister's place?" Matthews asked. "Where exactly?" "Oak Ridge subdivision off Henderson Road." I tried to ignore the bodies we passed, some moving, some still. "About 3 miles east." Matthews checked his radio. "We can get you within half a mile. After that, you're on your own. We have our orders. Establish a secure route to MacDill." I nodded, checking the Glock's magazine for the 3rd time. The familiar streets had transformed into a war zone under the Humvee's headlights. Abandoned cars lined the road, some with doors flung open, others showing signs of violent struggle. The infected appeared occasionally, drawn by our engines. They lunged at the vehicles but couldn't keep pace. "Sir," the driver called out, "roadblock ahead." A tangled mass of vehicles blocked the intersection. As we slowed, shadows emerged from between the wrecks. Dozens of infected poured out, surrounding our convoy. "This is your stop," Matthews said grimly. "We'll clear a path, but you need to move fast." He handed me a flare. "Light it only if you find survivors. We'll watch for the signal until dawn." I pushed open the Humvee's door, the metal creaking under my grip. The infected were focused on the larger vehicles, giving me a narrow window. I sprinted between abandoned cars, my footsteps echoing off empty buildings. Behind me, the convoy's engines roared as they reversed course. The streets of Autumn's neighborhood had become a labyrinth of dangers. Every rustle made me freeze. Every distant cry sent my heart racing. The Glock remained in my hand, though I dreaded using it. The noise would only draw more of them. Finally, I spotted Autumn's house. The porch light still burned, but something was wrong. The front door stood open, swaying gently in the breeze. Inside, furniture was overturned. A half-eaten dinner sat on the table, chairs knocked over as if someone had left in a hurry. But no blood, no signs of violence. "Autumn?" I called softly, checking each room. "Phoenix, Aria?" The house remained silent. In the kitchen, a note was magnetically attached to the refrigerator. My hands shook as I read Autumn's hurried handwriting. "Jason, if you're reading this, we're headed to MacDill. Military broadcast said they're setting up a safe zone. Kids are scared, but okay. Hospital's gone. I got out early. Please be alive. Please find us. Love, Autumn." Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by determination. MacDill, the same base the convoy was headed toward. If I hurried, I could catch up to them, maybe get another ride. I ran back toward the intersection where they'd left me, but stopped short at the sound of gunfire. Ahead, emergency lights strobed against low clouds. As I drew closer, my hope turned to ash. The convoy lay in ruins. Humvees were surrounded by infected, dozens of them, many wearing military fatigues. Lieutenant Matthews and his men had gone down fighting, but in the end, I backed away as the full horror of the scene sank in. My sister and her kids were somewhere between here and MacDill, and now my only chance of catching up to them was burning in the street. The infected hadn't noticed me yet, too busy with their grim feast. But more shadows moved in the darkness, drawn by the flames and gunfire. I was alone again, and the night was far from over. The burning wreckage of the convoy cast an orange glow across the intersection. Through the smoke, I could hear a survivor's voice, one of the soldiers, badly wounded. "Take the radio," he gasped, blood seeping from a bite wound in his neck. "Channel 3, command frequency. The last Humvee still intact." His eyes glazed over as his breathing stopped. I grabbed the radio from his vest and scanned the area. He was right. The 4th Humvee sat untouched 50 yards away, having veered off the road during the attack. If I could reach it. Static crackled as I switched to Channel 3. Through the interference, I caught fragments of communication. MacDill was still secure, but the safe zone was rapidly filling up. They were closing the gates at dawn. Dawn. I checked my watch, 3:47 a.m. Less than 3 hours to either find a way in or get help for the people at the fire station. The radio couldn't reach them from here. Too much interference, too much distance. The Humvee was my only shot. But between me and the vehicle, at least 30 infected wandered in the darkness, drawn by the burning wreckage. More shapes emerged from side streets, their movements quick and predatory as they searched for fresh prey. I studied their patterns, noting how they reacted to the flames, the way they clustered around the loudest noises. The Glock felt heavy in my hand, enough ammunition for maybe 10 of them, but the sound would draw the rest. A plan formed. Risky, but with time running out, I was past playing it safe. I circled wide through the shadows of abandoned buildings, working my way around to approach the Humvee from behind. The infected remained focused on the burning vehicles, their heads turning in unison at every pop and crackle of burning metal. 20 yards from the Humvee, I stepped on broken glass. The crunch was barely audible to my ears, but 3 infected spun toward the sound. I froze, pressed against a car's cold metal. They shuffled closer, heads tilting as they searched. 10 yards to go. My grip tightened on the Glock. One of the infected, a woman in torn medical scrubs, stepped around the car. Her vacant eyes found mine. Her jaw opened in a silent snarl. I fired once, the sound deafening in the pre-dawn quiet. She dropped, but the damage was done. Every infected in the area turned toward the gunshot. I ran. No point in stealth now. The Humvee's door handle felt like salvation under my fingers. I yanked it open as the first infected reached for me, teeth snapping shut on empty air as I swung inside. More hands clawed at the vehicle as I pulled the door closed. Outside, dozens of infected pressed against the windows, their combined weight rocking the Humvee. A crack appeared in the passenger window, then another. The engine roared to life just as the glass shattered. I slammed the transmission into drive and floored the accelerator. The Humvee surged forward, throwing infected off its hood. More disappeared under the wheels as I plowed through their ranks. The radio crackled. I snatched it up while steering with one hand. "This is Jason Thorne, civilian survivor. I'm in U.S. military vehicle trying to reach MacDill. Fire Station 12 has multiple survivors in need of immediate evacuation. Does anyone copy?" Static. Then, "Copy that, civilian. What's your location?" I rattled off cross streets as I swerved around a pileup, the Humvee's reinforced bumper shoving smaller cars aside. Infected sprinted after me, but the vehicle's power kept me just ahead of their grasping hands. "Be advised, we have gunships in your sector," the radio responded. "Light a signal if you can confirm visual on the fire station survivors." The flare. I still had the flare Lieutenant Matthews had given me. I turned the Humvee toward the fire station, the engine's roar drawing infected from every shadow. They filled the streets now, a mass of writhing bodies that parted only momentarily as I plowed through their midst. The station appeared ahead, its windows still glowing with emergency lighting. But something was wrong. The bay doors were open. Had they been overrun? Movement caught my eye. Organized movement. A group of people hurried out of the station, led by Captain Reynolds and Ben. They carried what supplies they could, trying to stay quiet as they headed for evacuation vehicles. They must have heard the radio call. They were making their move. But infected were closing in from all sides, drawn by the noise of my approach. The survivors wouldn't make it to their vehicles before being surrounded. I triggered the Humvee's horn, pulling the infected toward me instead. The surge of undead bodies nearly blocked my view as they swarmed the vehicle. The engine strained as I pushed through them, creating an opening for the survivors. More infected poured out of side streets. The Humvee's wheels lost traction on the bodies beneath them, the engine whining as I fought to maintain momentum. The windshield cracked, then spiderwebbed under the impact of dozens of fists. I couldn't keep this up much longer, but the survivors were almost to their vehicles. The Humvee shuddered to a stop, overwhelmed by the press of bodies. Infected hands reached through broken windows. I climbed into the back seat, then up through the gunner's hatch. The flare ignited with a harsh snap, painting everything in crimson light. I held it high as infected climbed the Humvee's sides, their fingers grasping for me. The sound hit first, the distinctive thrum of helicopter rotors. Then spotlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the street in stark white. 2 Blackhawks swept in low, Dr. Gunners opening fire, the infected falling back under the barrage. More helicopters appeared, hovering over the station as ropes dropped and combat teams fast-roped to the ground. "This is Rescue Actual," the radio crackled. "We've got your people, civilian. Stand by for immediate extraction." I watched from the Humvee's roof as soldiers secured the area, creating a perimeter around the survivors. Ben helped guide people into the helicopters, while Captain Reynolds coordinated with the military commander. Dawn broke over Tampa as the last helicopter lifted off. Below, the infected wandered aimlessly through streets now empty of prey. The city was lost. But its people, some of them at least, would survive. "Sir," a soldier called up to me, "we need to move. There's room on the last bird." I climbed down, legs shaking with exhaustion. "McDill," I said. "My sister." The soldier nodded. "The base is still secure. If she made it there, you'll find her." As we lifted off, I watched the sun rise over the ruins of the city. The night had changed everything, but maybe, just maybe, there was still hope in the light of day.